future timeline of Dragon Ball Z is what it looks like when heroes fail. It shows us the dark reality that could have easily befallen our heroes. The Earth is in ruins, the surviving characters that we know are alone and sad, and there's little to no hope of fixing their new normal. But what if that wasn't? What if Bulma somehow found new Namek, gathered their Dragon Balls, and wished to undo everything the androids, now Cell in this story, have done? Then imagine if Gohan got to train another world this whole time that he's been gone, and set the world at peace again. Well, my friends, today we find out just that. After disembarking from the aircraft that he, Bulma, and Dende were on, Gohan now finds himself at his own memorial. Well, not just his own, but the gravesite that also contains Grandpa Ox and Goku himself. In the background, we see an old house that we should be relatively familiar with by now. Either way, that wasn't the main thing he left the others to see. Now in front of the house itself. It's been so long since he's been to this place. As he approaches, he knew it. He knows that key. Letting himself in. A shotgun-wielding Chi-Chi commands the thug to stay right where he is. It's been a long time since thieves came near here. The last ones ended up filled with holes. But wait, it's him. It's Gohan. But Gohan? Her son relaxes his face and admits it really is. He's finally home. Dashing over to him. She sobs that she missed him so much. He expresses that he missed her too. But how is this possible? She buried him herself 18 years ago. Gohan pleads for her forgiveness for abandoning her for so long. He's sorry. She chides for him not to talk such nonsense. All of that doesn't matter anymore. Just like her old self, she's sure that he's starving, who actually wouldn't mind a nice little meal. For the first time in years, Chi-Chi gets to cook her only son his favorite dishes. Also, his clothes are all torn. He should change them. He'll find his old outfits, as well as his father's, in his room. The meal will be ready within an hour. As the young man thanks his mother. The sun sets on this monumental day. Scarfing down dinner, Gohan dictates now that 17 and Cell are dead, the world will finally be able to live in peace. When he arrived back in the living world, he saw his grandfather's name on the family grave. Is it Cell or the cyborgs that caused this? Chi-Chi explains that she heard of Cell on the survivor's radio frequency, but the Mount Paozu area is really isolated. Apart from a few looters, no one has been here. His grandfather passed away a few years ago. Gohan's death hurt him the most. He never really got over it. He would be so proud to know that he was the one who freed everybody from the cyborgs and Cell. Anyway, he's been quite busy for his first day back on Earth. She wants to hear all about his 18 years in the other world. What did he do during all this time? And it would take a long time to explain, but he'll make it short. He spent 8 years training with his dad and Piccolo. Then, thanks to Kaio-sama, he had the chance to study for the next 10 years with some great scientists. And really? Shockingly, not about the studying part, but he was with Goku? How is he doing? He's fine. It won't surprise her to know that he spends most of his time training. Besides that, he misses her very much. He doesn't think a day went by without him talking about her cooking. Who swoons over the thought that even after all this time, her Goku still thinks about her. She supposes that just like Gohan, he hasn't aged in heaven either. Of course, Chi-Chi isn't well versed on the nuances regarding heaven, Hiffle, otherworld, etc. She continues to fawn that he must still be as young and handsome as she remembers, while she herself has become a wrinkled granny. It isn't fair. Looking towards the camera, Gohan chuckles to himself that he thinks it's still a bit too early to tell her about Bulma getting her 30s back via the Namekian Dragon Balls. Arranging the second course, the proud mother is happy to see that he still has the same appetite. As she stated before, she's cooked all of his favorite dishes. He deserves it. Thanking her, Gohan chortles that she really is the best cook in the whole world. When the question is brought up, Chi-Chi says aloud, "Come to think of it, he never told her what Bulma's last wish was, supposing it was to bring Vegeta back to life, right?" But, not really. She asked Puehringer to give her her 30s back. For the first time in 31 years, the sun rises on a world at peace. Although she knows he has to help the survivors, Chi-Chi wants her son to promise that he will come back soon. And she has nothing to worry about. He'll come back as often as possible. Before she humorously scowls for him to not forget to tell Bulma that she needs to find a way to get her younger too. She can't be the only one of the group who stays old. Stuttering a little, he'll tell her, bidding her goodbye for now. Dashing into the horizon. He can sense that the survivors are all so scattered. It'll take time to help them all. He hopes that Dende will be able to give them new Dragon Balls in order to repair all the atrocities committed by the cyborgs in Cell. Speaking of which, he's almost at Korin's tower. Recreating a familiar scene from another timeline. Gohan catches up with his friends, offering a little bit of small talk before hopping to it. Bulma questions how Chi-Chi's doing. Who's well, all thanks to Bulma's efforts that allowed him to return to life. By the way, she would like her to find a way for her to get younger too. Ironically, though not too surprisingly given it is Bulma, she already has an idea, but she'll need a new lab before she can get started. Dende grimaces that in the future, it would be better not to use the Dragon Balls for such wishes. Which, yeah, of course. Right, Bulma? Right, Bulma? Anyway, the new Guardian presents the model of Shenron. And he must say, this is a rather original design. It's the first time he's seen one of this kind. Bulma's fears were well founded, before when she was worried that the model would no longer contain any trace of magic within it. Unfortunately, that appears to be the case, so an immediate reactivation is going to be impossible. Nevertheless, having an intact model of the dragon isn't nothing. Using it, he'll be able to create the original Dragon Balls. Huh? The original Dragon Balls? What does he mean by that? He elaborates that these are also known as the Ancestral Dragon Balls. Their creation was only possible thanks to the magic formula transmitted by the creators to the ancient Namekians during time immemorial. Their powers are described as unequaled in the Namek legends. No great elder has managed to recreate them for thousands of years, but he himself possesses this power, which is why Elder Mori wanted to send him to Earth with her. For it'll take a greater power than even Puehringer to restore this planet and its inhabitants. We'll need an entire year to achieve this. Although he frames this like a disappointment, it's actually crazy impressive. It even causes Bulma to spout out that he's the real genius. The scientist announces that she's going to see if Capsule Corp is still standing and get some materials to help the survivors. Gohan excitedly adds that they'll take advantage of this year. They'll gather the survivors and start rebuilding the world. Touching down in the remains of what is possibly West City, Gohan is glad to see that Yajirobe has survived all these years. He understands that it's thanks to him that all these people are still alive. He's a true hero. He explains to Goku's son that it was Korin's last wish. He wanted him to take care of the survivors so humanity could continue. He tried his best. Anyway, Gohan must have become an incredible warrior if he managed to get rid of that butt-munch Cell. Peeking over his shoulder is a middle-aged Mr. Satan. He boasts that he was a great warrior himself in his youth. He should have even participated in the World Championships, but before the arrival of the cyborgs. This brings up a couple things about Mr. Satan. If Goku and Piccolo was the championship bout of the 23rd World Tournament, and the 25th World Tournament of the normal timeline was Android 18 and Mr. Satan, this means either in this timeline, something stopped the 24th Budokai from happening, or something led to Mr. Satan not entering like he normally would have. Further, or Trunks' arrival in the past could have also somehow led him to decide to enter. It only took a few weeks for our friends to gather all the survivors on Earth. With a bright future on the horizon, the reconstruction of the world could begin. A little more than a year has passed since Gohan's victory over Cell and Android 17. Dende has just reunited everyone at the lookout. He calls out to everybody that he's glad to see them all. It took a little longer than expected to make the original Dragon Balls, but they're finally gonna use them. But something is very different about these balls. Red? Red Dragon Balls? So these are the ancestral variation, the most powerful ones Dende told him about. The truth is, a lot of knowledge has been lost after the Great Cataclysm on ancient Namek. Even if he himself has the gift of creation, his capabilities are limited to one, and only one wish. But one thing is for sure, the power of these balls is immense. Unlike the others, they're not linked to any dragon. It is a power that the Namekians themselves breathe into them. Once finished, this set of Dragon Balls will self-destruct. Only one wish? Meaning Chi-Chi won't be able to see Goku again. He wasn't a victim of the cyborg's ore cell. Speaking of Chi-Chi, Gohan points out that she's looking as fine as ever. She regained her youth thanks to a rejuvenating cream invented by Bulma. Postulating on how they should phrase their wish, Dende asks if it's to bring back the victims of the cyborgs in Cell, isn't it? And if Gohan remembers correctly, 17 said that he killed Dr. Gero himself, causing Chi-Chi to scoff that there's no way they're bringing that crazy man back to life. Can they resurrect only people with a good heart? However, by making this wish, Dende doubts that Vegeta can also be brought back to life, something Chi-Chi forgot about, apologizing to Bulma. Picking his nose, Yajirobe doesn't really see what the problem is, prompting a heated response. Gohan then argues that when Vegeta died, he wasn't the same person as when they fought him on Earth. He doubts resurrection will be a problem. His father told him that before Vegeta arrived at the check-in station, Goku himself tried to negotiate with King Yama to allow him into heaven. However, he refused. But in return, he did agree not to send him to hell and also not allow his soul to be purged or reincarnated. Therefore, he cannot legally be considered evil. He knows the subject well. He studied the laws of heaven and hell during his time dead. Solving the issue rather quickly. Sounds like Bulma's slam piece has more or less simply been in a dormant state or suspended animation these last few decades. Likely, Goku foresaw this day and wanted to give his rival a fighting chance to reclaim his old life. Now, Dende will get started. He warns everyone to back off just a bit. Rupavi Peroko Ngiza, Umruko Izase Nifi Hanefa. Summoning a dragon that looks an awful lot like Ultimate Shenron, the one who appears from the Black Star Dragon Balls in GT. Let's just hope this resemblance is only a coincidence. The dragon saying his dragon things. The time has come. After over 30 years of horror, and just under 2 years since the series began airing on this channel, he informs the serpent of his wish. He wants him to bring back all the victims of the cyborgs in Cell. Please only resurrect the good people.
Alpha Virumi Hanadivash, Nise Podizivi, Elfe and Dobse, Dobmi Budnaldo, Dafish, Ruvitaru Dobsivipo.
Unable to understand what's being said, Gohan makes sure everything's okay. Is he able to grant the wish? And yes, their wish has been granted. As such, the Great Dragon announces that he will now withdraw from the summoning, offering the group farewell. Just as stated previously, sure enough, the balls really did explode. Yajirobe trembles, that red dragon was truly scary. But the question remains, did it really work? Given their expressions, Gohan and Dende seem to have very little doubt. Feeling billions of energy signatures appear suddenly throughout the planet. People who have been dead for over 30 years wake up with their bodies restored, many wondering if this, or their previous memory of being killed, could all be a dream. Others raise their hands in excitement. How could this be possible? Even Videl. She still remembers the sounds of sirens. The cyborgs attacked and a huge explosion followed. Some people can't believe they've been given a second chance. Others a third, or at least practically a third. One in particular could have hoped to stand up to this threat in a different timeline. But with no Majin Buu, that means there's no reincarnation of Majin Buu. Then there are so many other familiar faces we've come to know over the years, including those who are a bit perverted, but still fight for peace. Of course, we also have the Z-Fighters we grew up with. Yamcha excitedly calls out that King Kai told him that Bulma had resurrected Gohan, but he was far from imagining that it would also be possible for them. But someone is escaping the senses of Tien. Piccolo doesn't seem to be here. Krillin doesn't find this surprising. His role as Guardian of Hell is way too important to allow him to return to life. Meaning whether in this timeline or in GT, Piccolo seems to have been destined to return as Guardian. But what does that mean for Kami? Did they still fuse? Or has the previous Guardian of Earth also been assigned a new role in Otherworld? Tien then notes that the whole of humanity has also seemed to come back to life. Do the Dragon Balls from Namek really possess such power? Even Yamcha can't remember him being this powerful in the past. Any way you look at it, what he does know is that he can feel their friend's key at the lookout. He'll learn more by going there. Something that's hard to argue with. On the way there, the Wolf Warrior looks over to Krillin to question if he feels that too. And of course he does. In that case, they ought to make a little detour first. Snatching up some turtle jerky. The gang informs Roshi of the little they know. Seems like their old master didn't get to keep his body upon his own death, but they tell him that it was Gohan who returned peace to the earth. Grabbing Oolong too. Just thinking about this horrible cell gives him chills, prompting Chaozu to exclaim that King Kai said Gohan took him and 17 out with ease. Detracting, Roshi inquires if they're gonna be there soon. He's really gotta use the bathroom. Gohan points out that the others are coming. Following an emotional reunion, Bulma thinks she's detailed everything that's happened. Yamcha can only apologize. So many terrible things have happened in their absence. But thanks to her, everyone is back. Kinda makes up for the whole dumping him for Vegeta thing. Speaking of whom, she points out that he didn't come with them. Is that because he didn't get brought back? Though Krillin quells her worries, Vegeta got brought back just the same as most anyone. He even thinks he should be here soon. And, really? But what is he doing? Where is he?
Damn Android! Where are you? I'm going to kill you!
Zipping around the planet, feverishly trying to find 17 and 18. Surely the Earthlings must know what's going on. And they're all in the same place. Chuckling at his own prediction, Krillin points out the direction his key is arriving from. See? I told you. As he lands, Bulma is elated to see him. Even the others appear at least a little joyful. However, the prince is just his same old self. He yells to know what's going on. Where are the androids? He demands answers now. Causing the mother of his baby boy to pout that he just got resurrected, and his only concern are those androids? He could have at least given her a little bit of attention. But she can stop with her nonsense and answer him. She goes into depth how if he would have just gotten here with everyone instead of trying to hunt down those androids, she wouldn't have to repeat herself. For him, it's only been an instant, but he needs to know that it's actually been 32 years since he died fighting them. Needless to say, she's been through hell in the time being. But today, the androids aren't around anymore, and the world is finally at peace. The news that he's been dead for 32 years seems to be the only thing that takes the Saiyan's attention away from the androids. Taking this all in, his pompous ego won't allow him to be grateful, and he only scowls that it took her all this time to finally neutralize those tin cans. Ridiculous! Quickly taking away the little happiness his presence provided the others. He still has his bad attitude, it seems. Krillin noting that it's not just his attitude that's bad. Unlike his friends, Tien is the only one out of the group who can't keep his thoughts quiet on this. He shouts over to Vegeta that he should show a little respect and gratitude towards their friends that suffered to allow them to come back to life. He shouldn't forget that it was his own stubbornness to keep fighting the androids that sealed their fate 32 years ago. Looking over to him, the Saiyan replies that he doesn't care about any of his advice or whining. If he had gotten killed by them, it's for the same reason he got killed by Nappa, because he's weak. Remind him, what's even his name again? Now outright stepping over to him, Tien assures the prince not to worry. This time, he'll make sure he won't forget. Although Gohan tries to warn that it's no use. That's when it finally hits Vegeta who that one is. Would you look at this? Kakarot's offspring finally all grown up. He hisses for him to stay out of this. He has a feeling that his three-eye friend is missing the other world. It'll be a pleasure to send him back. The Triclops spouse said he doesn't seem to understand what Bulma told him. A lot has changed in 32 years. Giving the Saiyan everything he needs to cackle out in laughter. Is he crazy? Millions of years wouldn't be enough for a worm like him to reach his level. Unleashing the Kaioken times 20. His name is Ten Shinhan. Since Vegeta only respects strength, he must understand that the majority of the warriors here could blow him to pieces without breaking a sweat. You will never forgive him for what he did when he arrived on Earth. Try to remember that the only reason he's even still breathing is because of his own good faith, and nothing else. As shown in the extra pages of this chapter, while the numbers themselves are up for heavy debate and likely differ per source, translation, etc., we can still use it as a scale to see that Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha could all easily defeat Vegeta, at least if their Kaiokens were able to hold out. But that's impossible! Vegeta has never felt so much power. To be humiliated like this by some nobody? It's intolerable! He is the Prince of all Saiyans! Tien, however, resigns that he doesn't doubt it won't take him long to catch up with his strength. But know that Gohan is also a Super Saiyan. His power is so tremendous it's to the point Vegeta can't even fathom. But the kid can turn Super Saiyan? He's not even a pureblood. This can't be real. It must be a bad dream. These fools were able to train this entire time in Otherworld, and now they're trying to lecture him. He won't tolerate this. They will pay. Bulma finally cuts in that's enough. It feels like they're in high school or something. They didn't bring them all back just so they could kill each other all over again. It's time to leave the past behind and move on. Continuing. The bad man bellows that if he thinks this little spectacle will impress him, he's gravely mistaken. The Triclops is first on his list. He will come back, and be assured that when he does, he will pay dearly for this disrespect. He is Vegeta, Prince of all... Perhaps how we learned to simmer down a bit in our own timeline. Bulma grabs him by the ear and yells, "That's enough!" It's always the same thing with him. So now, Mr. Prince of all Saiyans, he's gonna stop acting like a child and learn how to act like a man. A year later, in the wilderness, likely around Paozu, Gohan's voice can be heard shouting for someone to keep focusing their ki. Videl! He tells her she's flying! Who only scoffs that it's been 5 days and she can barely float. Either the pair have met in the time rebuilding the Earth, or crossed paths during their deaths. But if Gohan died age 780, and was born in 757, that means he was 23 at the time of his death. And in the beginning of this arc, it's said to be year 798. And 1 year has passed since then, and it took Dende another full year to make the Dragon Balls. And given he kept his body in Otherworld, that means Gohan is physically 25 years old, with the mind of a 43-year-old. And Videl, since she didn't keep her body, we can postulate that she was already about a year younger than Gohan in canon, which is distanced further by the additional year since Gohan has been resurrected a year longer, and given it's unknown when she died and her physical appearance, she could mathematically be between 15 and 23 years old. Wait, she specifically said it was the cyborgs who attacked her, meaning she must have died sometime before 788, as that's when Cell first appeared in this timeline. Then again, given her character design identically matches the appearance of her high school age self, this detail gets us nowhere and only affirms what we already feared. And that seems to mean... But it's also important to remember that this is just a work of fiction about magical wish balls and kung fu aliens. And Gohan is about the purest soul to ever live. Addressing her quarrel, he assures that's normal. It takes time to master this technique. Soon she'll be a natural. Spotting Vegeta, a sense of dread overwhelms the young warrior. He must still be looking for Gohan. It looks like he's heading towards his mom's house. He apologizes to Videl, but he'll have to cut their session short today. She only huffs that he can do whatever he wants. She only hopes it's not an excuse to go see some other girl, though. But, not really. He asks her to say hi to her dad for him. Sure enough, the Saiyan finds himself at Chi-Chi's house. She screams again? This is the third time he's shown up here this month. If it wasn't enough having this girl hovering around Gohan, he doesn't have to do it too. Who argues that her son has been hiding his ki for weeks because he's afraid to face him. He's acting like a coward and is a disgrace to Kakarot and all of his Saiyan ancestors. Chi-Chi barks that he's got some nerve saying Gohan is a coward, when he knows darn well he could knock him out with a single punch if he wanted. But those times are gone. Vegeta has come back to take his rightful place as the #1 Saiyan. She recommends he should be spending some time with Bulma instead of bothering Gohan with such nonsense, causing him to start to show he's the more developed, slightly less angsty Vegeta we've gotten to know in Dragon Ball Super. Almost blushing, he howls for her to keep her advice to herself. The only thing he wants to know is where he can find her son. Right on cue. The very same figures now it's about time to finally confront the disgruntled prince. He hollers out, "Hey Vegeta, how's it going? It's been a while." Very pleased to see him. He doesn't miss words and bluntly states that he was just telling his mother how much of a coward he is for refusing to fight him. Which, given that, looks like he doesn't have much of a choice, huh? The pair head off to a more desolate location. It's obvious to Gohan that he's improved a lot since coming back to life. Though the prince can't say the same about the son of Kakarot. He doesn't seem to be taking his training seriously. Also, speaking of math a minute ago, weird to think that Gohan is now technically older than Vegeta, who are mentally about 43 and 36. However, he assures he may not be training as intensely as him, but he is maintaining himself. But maintaining himself? What a fancy way of saying that he's lacking. Just let the humans handle the rebuilding of their world. They are the only 2 Saiyans remaining. He can't go soft like that. Otherwise, he'll make him regret it. Without need to carry on, Gohan merely tells him he's ready. Recognizing that face, the opposite can't help but point out that that's the same smile as his father. It'll be a pleasure to wipe it off his face. Revealing the same form he sported against Cell and Cannon. He screeches out in laughter, "What does he think of this?" And he admits he is impressed. He would have never thought he would have gotten this far in only a year. Continuing his hubris, Vegeta chortles that he told this kid he's making a mistake here. He can now call him Super Vegeta. And Super Vegeta? Well, if that thumb pose wasn't a dead giveaway. Gohan tells him it's impressive that he managed to explore all the variations of Super Saiyan in such a little time. He assumes he knows all about their drawbacks though. Now he needs to learn how to maintain his Super Saiyan state naturally, meaning at all times. It's a difficult process, but his strength will be multiplied dramatically. What? Then, his goal will be to attain the real step above Super Saiyan. Super Saiyan 2. Not only taking the wind out of Vegeta's sail, but setting it on fire and throwing it into the ocean. Speaking of fire in the ocean, at Kame House, Krillin and Yamcha wonder why Gohan's going all out. But Krillin thinks he knows. He's just showing Vegeta the way to break through his Super Saiyan limits. Later that evening, seeming to have called off their fight given the lack of battle damage, the pair sit by a fire cooking a fish. Vegeta wants Gohan to tell him, is Super Saiyan 2 the ultimate step for they Saiyans? And not really, but it is his current limit. Though not really. Don't tell him. Yep, there's much stronger than Super Saiyan 2. How is that possible? Who's able to achieve it? With only a silent stare in response, Gohan is able to answer without saying a word. Of course, Kakarot. Wanting to hear all about this forum, or forums, after Super Saiyan 2, Vegeta implores Gohan to tell him everything. Don't spare any details. He's happy to oblige. He'll tell him everything. With the Earth finally at peace and Vegeta slowly turning into less of a rabid dog of an ally, just how will this new timeline progress? We still have Trunks essentially trapped in the other world of the past timeline, and Goku in both timelines getting into his own otherworldly adventures. Only time will tell.